Alright, so I wanted to talk about the spiritual teachers. Spiritual teachers or gurus or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to suggest that there isn't such a thing as a spiritual teacher as a separate entity, separate from a separate seeker or a spiritual learner. There's only, I would say, spiritual teaching that is accessible in every aspect of this experience, in every manifestation, let's say, of this appearance. Because how can it be that there can be a separate spiritual teacher if there's no separation, if nothing's separate? How can spiritual knowledge be passed from one separate entity to another if the nature of this is non-dual? If this really all is one? So I would suggest that any spiritual teaching that seems to appear in experience or seems to be downloaded into this experience or seems to reveal clarity in regards to this awakeness is awakeness recognizing itself without separation, or with the thinning of the veil of separation. So in the comments, Ben pointed out a good point, and that was that it's helpful to be aware of the position in which we're approaching this so-called spiritual journey, this path or our practice. Because from a position, from a separate position, all that can be seen is other separate positions. So the qualities of, or the assumed qualities of this experience that is mine as a separate thing will then be projected out onto by the mind, onto this appearance, and it will make it look like there are separate people. There is a person here with spiritual knowledge, there is a person here who without spiritual knowledge, there is an enlightened person, there's an unenlightened person. So the ego can only see other egos. Separation can only see separation. As this non-dual appearance, whatever you'd like to call it, as this awakeness, everything becomes wisdom, inexclusive of anything. So there's wisdom accessible in every manifestation of this appearance. There's wisdom accessible absolutely everywhere. And it doesn't need to be defined by or labelled or categorised by the mind to qualify as being valuable, or to qualify as not being valuable. So that's why I always maintain on this channel that I'm not a person talking to you, another person. about the subject of awakening. When whoever's watching these videos watches them, I would encourage the viewer to relax the view, the position that says or suggests that I'm sitting here as a person with my position, with my knowledge, suggesting to you that I know that I know the way it is, and you're here to learn the way it is from whatever I'm saying. So if it seems like you're a person listening to me, a person trying to explain to you a point of view or a spiritual knowledge, then that's not what I'm pointing to. Is this what I seem to be doing here could easily come across as super super obnoxious, super egotistical, super off-putting if viewed from a position of separation, from a position of a separate me. I say that because I can remember a time where that position was held stringently by myself, and the mind would qualify the value of the spiritual teaching based on the point of view or my interpretation of the individual who was teaching it. But I didn't realise that they weren't teaching. So I don't consider myself to be a spiritual teacher. Not at all. The value and the inherent wisdom in all experience starts to become accessible, starts to become clear when it's understood, or when it's clear, not understood, that when you're listening to, like, for example, non-dual talk, this is, you could take it as you talking to yourself, you awakeness, talking to yourself, awakeness. Because when we're talking about non-duality, we're talking about not separateness, not this, not that, not a position, not an interpretation, no value, no meaning. Nothing being separate whatsoever. So relaxing that position may create the space for awakeness to, so to speak, talk itself through this process of dissolution of that position. So any of those who have been following this channel and talking to me for a while, any insight, any recognition that has seemed to come about due to this interaction is not dependent on this character David whatsoever. The point is that this character David doesn't exist. All that there is you, which is also me, you could say, but that doesn't make any sense. All there is we don't have a name for it, but I like to call it awakeness. All there is non-dual nature. So then when we're not limiting our source of spiritual, not keen on using that word, knowledge, then this opens up a vast world of possibilities where wisdom can be perceived, let's say, inexclusive of anything. Wisdom can be perceived inherent in the appearance, in the experience. So then it becomes infinitely accessible. It's not dependent on a source, a single source. That's why I always say the main objective of this channel, I've said it a couple times, is to, at some point, let go of these talks, these teachings, let go of listening to this non-dual message, and let this awakening process direct itself. Because all of that insight, all of that recognition, you could say, comes from within. But the within we're talking about here isn't inside or outside, has no outside. The within we're talking about here is everything in experience, or in your experience without the you position at the centre of experience that makes value judgments based on its own conditioning. So this is kind of helpful when looking for resources regarding the awakening thing. But what's important is how it feels. So when you watch these videos, can you feel the resonance? Can you feel this message at a level that's not so tangible by the mind, that's maybe just out of reach of the mind? Because a lot of the things that are said here don't make any sense, and they're not heavy. They don't have weight to them. They don't have solid meaning to them. They're here as pointers. They're pointing to something that you can feel. And when that recognition clarifies, when that feeling is there, and it's certain, it's doubtless, then that will direct this whole process in a way that concepts and ideas and language can only really be helpful up to a certain point. So really, you're the spiritual teacher. You are the only spiritual teacher, whoever's watching this video. But you're not separate from anything else. You're not separate from anything else. Anyway, that'll do for now, and I'll talk to you next time.